You know, people spent most of my life talking about fear. They talked about the fastball, the stare, the way I pitched inside like I was trying to knock pride out of another man. And maybe some of that was true. I never walked onto a mound looking for friendship. Baseball in my era was hard baseball. Men played hurt, men traveled tired, men carried anger into games and left bruised after them. That was the game I understood. But something changes when you get older. You stop remembering statistics first. You stop remembering headlines too. What stays with you are people, certain voices, certain moments, certain players who made the game feel larger than competition. Some men pushed me, some embarrassed me, some made me laugh when I didn't feel like laughing, and a few reminded me that baseball could still have grace inside all that violence and pressure. I spent most of my life trying to beat people. That was my job. But if you play long enough and if you love the game deeply enough, eventually you become honest about the players who truly meant something to you. Not just the greatest players, the ones you carried with you, the ones you respected so much it almost felt personal, the ones you loved watching even when you hated competing against them. There were thousands of players during my lifetime, Hall of Famers, superstars, legends people still talk about today, but only five ever became players I truly loved. And the first one was a man who made baseball feel alive every single night. Lou Brock was my teammate, but the truth is, we were nothing alike. I carried baseball around like a weapon. Lou carried it like freedom. I was quiet most days, serious, focused. Lou walked into clubhouses smiling, talking, laughing with everybody around him. Sometimes I used to wonder how a man could stay that loose before a game, especially in St. Louis, where expectations sat on your shoulders every single night. Then the first pitch came, and suddenly you understood exactly who Lou Brock was. I have never seen many men create fear with speed the way Lou did. Pitchers changed their rhythm because of him. Catchers rushed throws because of him. Infielders got nervous before the ball was even hit. The moment Lou reached first base, the entire stadium changed. You could feel tension spread everywhere. That kind of pressure is rare. People talk about his stolen base numbers now, the records, the highlights. But what I remember most is the energy he brought into the game. Baseball seasons are long, longer than fans realize. There are nights when everybody feels exhausted, nights when hitters stop talking, pitchers stop smiling, coaches barely say a word. Lou never seemed to let the game drain him completely. He reminded the rest of us that baseball was still supposed to have joy in it. There were nights I came back in to the dugout angry after giving up a run or missing a spot. Lou always knew how to cut through that tension, sometimes with a joke, sometimes just with that laugh of his. He understood people better than most ball players did. And on the field, he played fearless baseball, hard slides, aggressive, turns around the bases, constant pressure. He forced teams to panic, and panic wins games. As I got older, I realized every great team needs somebody like Lou Brock, somebody who keeps the game alive emotionally, somebody who reminds you this sport is not just about toughness, it is also about energy, rhythm, joy. Lou Brock gave all of us that. And baseball felt faster when he was part of it. Willie Mays was not my teammate. He was something much harder to deal with. He was the kind of player who made pitchers uncomfortable before the game even started. Most hitters had weaknesses. Maybe they chased high fastballs. Maybe they struggled against breaking pitches inside. Maybe they guessed too much. But Willie played baseball like he had already seen the next 5 seconds before everybody else did. That was the frightening part about him. You could throw a good pitch to Willie Mays and still feel disappointed afterward. That tells you everything. I faced a lot of great hitters in my lifetime, but Willie had a way of controlling the feeling of a game. Some men swing bats. Willie controlled atmosphere. Fans reacted differently when he walked to the plate. Infielders moved differently. Pitchers thought differently. Even experienced veterans paid closer attention once he stepped into the batter's box. That kind of presence cannot be taught. And what impressed me most was how natural he made everything look. Nothing about Willie felt forced. The catches, the base running, the swing, even the confidence looked effortless. Some stars spend their whole careers trying to look comfortable under pressure. Willie was comfortable before pressure even arrived. As a pitcher, that bothered me because intimidation was supposed to belong to men like me. But Willie Mays carried his own kind of intimidation, quiet, relaxed, almost smiling sometimes, like the game belonged to him no matter who stood on the mound. I remember watching him during batting practice once and realizing something uncomfortable. Baseball looked easier for him than it did for most professionals. That is a rare thing to admit about another player when you are as competitive as I was. But honesty matters when you get older. And honestly, Willie made baseball beautiful. Even opponents knew it. Even angry pitchers knew it. You would leave the field frustrated with him, then sit alone later thinking about how incredible he truly was. A lot of players become famous. Very few become part of the soul of the game itself. Willie Mays did. When he walked onto a baseball field, the entire sport felt bigger. Hank Aaron was the kind of man I respected immediately because he never wasted anything. Not movement, not emotion, not words. A lot of hitters tried to intimidate pitchers in my era. Some talked too much, some showed off after home runs, some wanted attention every time they stepped onto the field. Hank never needed any of that. He walked to the plate quietly, carried the bat like a worker, carrying tools, and then ruined your night without changing expression once. That kind of calm used to bother me because intimidation did not work on him. I pitched inside to everybody. That was baseball. I wanted hitters uncomfortable. I wanted them thinking about the ball near their ribs instead of the strike zone. Most players reacted somehow. Maybe they glared at you. Maybe they backed off the plate. Maybe they started swinging angry. Hank Aaron almost never changed. That made him dangerous. You could throw hard inside fastballs and somehow he still stayed balanced. You could get ahead in the count and somehow he still looked patient. There were nights I thought I had set him up perfectly, only to watch him drive a pitch into the gap like the entire at-bat had unfolded exactly the way he expected. That wears on a pitcher mentally. And what I loved most about Hank was the professionalism. Baseball today has too much noise around it sometimes, too much performance outside the game itself. Hank respected the game enough not to turn himself into a performance. He came to work, played hard, hit baseballs harder than almost anybody who ever lived, then went home quietly afterward. There is dignity in that. I think a lot of people forgot how much pressure that man carried too. Chasing Babe Ruth's record brought attention most human beings could never handle properly, but Hank carried it with strength, real strength, not loud strength, quiet strength. The older I got, the more I admired that about him, because baseball eventually teaches you something important. The loudest men are rarely the strongest ones. The strongest men usually do not need to announce themselves at all. Hank Aaron understood that before most of us did. He never needed baseball to tell people who he was. The game already knew. Roberto Clemente was one of the few opponents I felt connected to without needing many conversations. Some players understand pressure. Roberto lived inside it. We were both proud men, emotional men too, even if neither of us liked showing it publicly. And I think that is one reason I respected him so much. He carried himself with intensity every single night, not for attention, not for headlines, because that was simply who he was. You could see it in the way he played right field. You could hear it in the way he threw baseballs across the diamond. Roberto never played casually. I do not think he knew how a lot of players wanted fame during that era. Roberto wanted dignity. There is a difference. When you faced Clemente, you felt his pride immediately. He did not back down from inside pitching. He did not scare easily. And he absolutely did not let pitchers dictate the emotional tone of the game. I respected that because I tried to do the same thing from the mound, Some of the greatest throws I ever saw in baseball came from Roberto Clemente's right arm. Not just strong throws, violent throws, throws with anger in them, the kind that changed innings completely. Fans remember highlights now, but when you were actually on the field with him, you felt the pressure he created before the ball was even hit. And the thing I loved most about Roberto was that he understood baseball represented something larger than statistics. For Latin players especially, he carried enormous responsibility, bigger than most fans probably understood back then. Every mistake he made got judged harder. Every emotion got analyzed differently. Yet he still played with pride every single night. He never asked anybody to feel sorry for him either. That stayed with me because baseball can make men bitter. Long seasons, constant criticism, travel, pressure, fame. Some players slowly lose themselves inside all of it. Roberto never did. He stayed connected to who he was all the way to the end. The older I became, the more I realized greatness is not only about performance, it is about presence. And Roberto Clemente carried a presence that demanded respect from everybody around him. Opponents felt it, teammates felt it, entire stadiums felt it. Some men play baseball for themselves. Roberto played for something much bigger. Jackie Robinson was different from everybody else on this list because my connection to him started long before I ever became a major league pitcher. Before the awards, before the World Series, before people started calling me intimidating. I was just a young black ball player watching another man survive things I could barely imagine surviving myself. People today talk about Jackie Robinson like he was only courage, only history, only symbolism. But what impressed me most was how hard he still played while carrying all that weight on his shoulders. That is the part people forget. He still had to steal bases, still had to hit, still had to think clearly while entire stadiums wanted him broken emotionally. And somehow he kept going. When I was younger, I used to wonder how angry Jackie really was inside because I knew how angry I felt sometimes dealing with racism in baseball, even years later. And I did not have to carry half of what he carried, not even close. That is why I understood him more as I got older. People used to ask why I pitched with so much intensity, why I looked angry on the mound, why I refused to back down from anybody. The truth is, players like Jackie Robinson helped create that fire in players like me. He showed us that if the world wanted to challenge your dignity every day, then you had every right to compete with pride and force. Jackie never gave men like me permission to feel weak. And the beautiful thing about him was that he changed baseball psychologically, not just politically, not just culturally. Psychologically, he forced people to see black players differently because he was too talented, too disciplined, and too strong to ignore. That changes a sport forever. I loved great players in my lifetime. Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Roberto Clemente, men who made baseball unforgettable. But Jackie Robinson meant something deeper than greatness itself. He changed the emotional structure of the game. Without Jackie Robinson, there is probably no Bob Gibson. No mound, no Hall of Fame speech, no championships, no legacy for me to even talk about today. And I never forgot that. Some players become legends because of numbers. Jackie Robinson became something bigger than baseball itself. When you spend your whole life competing, people assume that is all you remember in the end. The fights, the arguments, the pressure, the anger, and sure, I remember those things too. I remember hitters glaring back at me after inside pitches. I remember loud stadiums in October. I remember nights when my arm hurt so badly I could barely take my jersey off afterward. Baseball was not gentle in my era. It demanded toughness from everybody. But age has a way of stripping things down to what really mattered. And for me, what mattered most were the men who made the game feel meaningful. Lou Brock reminded me baseball needed joy. Willie Mays reminded me greatness could look effortless. Hank Aaron showed me quiet strength. Roberto Clemente showed me dignity under pressure. And Jackie Robinson showed all of us what courage really looked like. Those men stayed with me long after the crowds disappeared. That is the funny thing about baseball. Fans think you remember statistics forever. Truth is, players remember feelings more than numbers. We remember respect. We remember fear. We remember certain moments that never leave your mind, no matter how old you become. And the older I got, the more grateful I became that I shared the field with men like them, because they did not just make baseball harder. They made it worth loving. I spent most of my life trying to beat other men. That was the job. That was the game. But in the end, the players I loved most were the ones who forced baseball to become something greater than competition. Those are the men you carry with you forever.